Thank you, Philip, for inviting me and having me moderate this session. That was a very inspiring fireside chat. Having started several companies myself, and yeah, I know that it's not something to take easy. So today's, we made some slides. Let's see, where are the slides? Is there a clicker? Oh, okay. Okay. So let's take some microphones, do some introductions here. I'm Alex Bausch, I'm with 2 Tokens, but I'll introduce myself last. Let's go to Seamus first. Seamus, you're from Ireland, I think.
Family-wise, yes, I'm Canadian, live in Switzerland. So Seamus Donoghue, I'm the VP of Strategic Alliances at Mitaco, a Swiss-based company. We presented earlier this morning, it was great to get a great turnout. And we basically provide infrastructure to Tier 1 institutions to enable them to securely integrate, build, and scale, and ultimately harmonize a digital offering for their clients.
Bernard, right?
Yes, Bernhard, good afternoon. My name is Bernhard Wenger. I'm responsible for distribution at 21 Shares. Here in the region, 21 Shares, we are a provider of ETPs linked to cryptocurrencies, to really making crypto investable for institutional investors and interested private investors who have, who can just trade their cryptos via their bank or broker.
Good.
Yeah, hi, my name is Boris Tsiganka. I'm a member of the board from Banco Scheich and a co-founder of Tradiers, our fintech crypto arm. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our discussion here. Yeah?
Good, good, good. And Thomas?
My name is Thomas Nägele. I'm managing partner of Nägele Attorneys at Law. I started my Bitcoin experience in 2011, started my PhD, which was back then called The Legal Nature of Bitcoin, in 2013. It was published last year. There's a picture of it. It's called now The Legal Nature of Tokens under Liechtenstein law. I was a part of the work group of the Liechtenstein government writing that piece of legislation, actually. And that's what we do on a daily basis in our firm. 80% of our work is somehow blockchain related. I'm really looking forward to our discussion.
So we have an author here, and a professor. We have a trader, right? You do trading. We have an infrastructure guy who delivers the tooling. I forgot. What did you do?
We're making crypto accessible for institutional investors, so we issue financial products.
Wow, that's almost as difficult as the title for our discussion, right? By the way, my name is Alex Bausch. I'm the founder of a non-for-profit foundation called 2 Tokens, and we advocate the use of tokenization. And I was really frustrated in 2018, 2019, and we were asked by the Port of Rotterdam, European Union, and the university to create a roadmap on what companies need to do if they want to do something with crypto and tokenization and what have you. And they said, don't use the word crypto, Bitcoin, blockchain, or anything like that, because that's scary. You recognize that? Yeah, so we focus on the end user story, what value we bring, and we try not to be technical about it. So we avoid the word blockchain, crypto, tokenization, all of that, because it's just there. We ask ourselves, why would my mother-in-law use this? You always have to ask yourself that question, Okay, so I inherited this title, Learning from Bitcoin to Establish Infrastructure from Digital Assets. And so when we called last week to introduce one another, we quickly ascertained that that was not the title that we were going to do. But we thought it was so funny that we left it anyways, right? So, instead, we said, let's focus on something that's more enjoyable here, right? Because we're all techies. I, for one, really enjoyed the session before the fireside chat, which I think after 2 minutes I was lost. I forget, what was this? Was that you, Thomas? You know what that was all about.
I was actually not here, sorry.
Oh.
I cannot help you there.
I can answer that because we discuss this with investors on a regular basis, really how to implement crypto in a portfolio and what does it mean for a financial portfolio if you add crypto into a traditional,
I'm already lost, sorry. I'm
way.
already lost. So my dad, he's 84.
Education first, and this is exactly why we're here. Because if you're already lost now, I think we need to start educating.
Yeah, but I'm educated. So why should I get educated?
I think everybody can be educated.
Yeah, but I'm 57. I've had several companies. I did many investments. Why should I get educated? You mean to tell me I need to get re-educated? Seamus.
You can make money.
No, Siemens. Seamus. Yeah, sorry. What do you think?
I mean, it's a critical question, and I think it was complicated. You know, statistical analysis not simple, but the key message is you can make more money. And I think that's ultimately what you're getting to, is you need to demonstrate why the use case, or what's the benefit ultimately, and why you should be motivated to learn about this. And I think that's what we're trying to demonstrate. Right?
Yep.
It's not just about technology for technology's sake. There's an opportunity here.
Technology looking for a problem? Yeah, yeah. Do you have a view on that, Thomas?
I think it can solve a lot of our problems, but it will not solve all of our problems. That's also true, right? And sometimes people think that technology, they just build things and nobody uses it because it's too complex, too complicated, right? Too hard to use. And I think we will see that more and more in the future, that we, as you said, we don't talk about blockchain, DLT technology or something like that. We just use it the way, because it's the most easiest way to do it, and it's the most efficient way to do it. But that's a long journey, and I think, we are getting better, but we are really at the start. But the user experience is all about, to be very honest, I think.
Yeah, so Boris, what did you learn from Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. It's a long, long story, and we're just starting the journey together. And it's like what we can learn from Bitcoin is it's always Bitcoin first. You know, everybody who's trying to touch that space, you know, from an investor or from an institutional view, it's always Bitcoin first, because it's already so hard for institutional clients to touch that topic, because everything is different. You know, everything is different, and it's just not the way they're used to. And that's actually where we come in. We try to bridge, like from the traditional world to the digital assets world. That's like what we say our sweet spot. We offer exactly that.
So,
bridge.
but if you go out, Boris, you go out to your clientele and sell them tokenization. Do you sell them crypto? Do you sell them how it is securitized, and or do you sell a solution?
Now, I think on the long run, I really think it's going to be tokenization. It's like that's the huge case. But the regulator is not, and the market is not so far at the moment.
Yeah, but why is that?
Yeah, because it's like everything's different. Like what we said, the regulation, and maybe I can start with a small story. Like how did we end up like being now one of the biggest market maker for regulated entry to that in Europe? We started with the tokenization of a Deutsche Telekom Aktie. So it was really a German stock, and we did a wrapper. So it's going to be like, it's a very, very simple product. It was just a tracker certificate that we tokenized, and then we had a very, very big reputation in the press, and they said, "Wow, great what you did, but can we trade crypto with you?" So it was the client side who really loved what we did, because no one ever has done that before. But what they want to do is trade Bitcoin, actually. So like in a few months, and then it was actually at that time when the German regulator said, okay, crypto, we're going to start with regulating crypto at the beginning. So, and then there was a big momentum that came in. And so, yeah, I think it's always Bitcoin first. Everybody who's touching that atmosphere starts with Bitcoin.
Maybe, actually, that's quite interesting. I think for me, it was easier to understand how Bitcoin works, seriously, than how we create money in our traditional world, to be very honest. And I think that is really the case. If you start, like, I had more interest in Bitcoin before I tried to understand what we do in our traditional world. And I think we can learn a lot about Bitcoin. And yes, it's complicated, but it is possible to understand it. It's not really that complicated, to be very honest, right? People, if you start in a new, but that's not like only in blockchain, right? In every area where you start, maybe you're overwhelmed because of all of the information, and everybody is telling you bits or a little piece of it, right? And to have the big picture, that might be challenging in the beginning. But if you dedicate your time, if you try to understand it, if you learn more and more, I think it's actually possible to understand it. And I think Bitcoin was the starting point. It was the first app, right? It was the first use case. And I think what is so groundbreaking working, and that's what actually we did in Liechtenstein with the work group where we thought about regulation in that space. We analyzed Bitcoin first, and what was so huge, right? What was so disruptive with Bitcoin, or still is that for the first time ever you had the opportunity to transfer value, so to say, without having intermediaries in place, only with technology, right? And it was for the first time ever possible. And then if you understand that, and why is that the case, right? You have to understand, you have to get educated, you have to understand how this algorithm works. But I totally agree that shouldn't, like the audience or like the standard user should never think about that, right?
Because what is the perception of Bitcoin? Come on.
Yeah, no.
So versus the reality. The perception of Bitcoin is that it's used for money laundering.
Yeah, but that's also kind of, that depends when people are starting with cryptocurrencies, like we had, first of all, we had the era of people who are using the darknet and were like going to Silk Road and stuff, right? And then you had the money launderings, which use all of this washing machines, right? That's the perception, I totally agree, right? With some folks, right? But if you look at what is really happening, and we thought about having some numbers, and it's quite tough to get these real numbers, what is really happening there, I think the numbers are quite low, right, in comparison to what people talk about, right? It's not the biggest problem. It is a problem for sure. Money laundering is a topic. Financing of terrorism is a topic, right? But is it really the most urgent topic? I think we have to also consider the innovative potential of these technologies. And we heard a lot about, which products we can build and whatever. I think what we have to understand is where this technology can be used to make things way more efficient and better and faster and whatever. But the audience or like the user should not think about that. But this brings me to another topic, and I think that's also maybe a little bit about reality, right? The problem is that you can easily get scammed in that area when you start first, right? If you just enter that space and you trust the first person you meet, that might be a good decision, right? But it might be the baddest decision ever. You lose a lot of money, right? So I think really, and we had that before, and that's the first the first sentence here: get educated first, right?
Get re-educated, maybe.
Get re-educated. So you think. Why did you why you were so offended about education?
If I look in the news, what happened in the European Parliament last week? Anybody see the news? What happened? Is everybody occupied with Ukraine? No, actually, what happened in the European Parliament last week could be devastating for Europe. We all agree now.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And why is that? Because members in Parliament aren't informed correctly, and I think that's on us.
Absolutely agree, but you have to imagine how politics work in most places, right? Every time you have to decide on a bunch of things, right? You get a 1,000-page memo. You have to prepare within 24 hours, right? And then decide on something which is by far, yes, it's maybe easier to understand than how fiat is created, but it's complex, right? And then you have to think about proof of work algorithm, and that's what we are talking about. We had like last week it was the travel rule, right? Yep. Before that we had the proof of work ban. And that's really, I mean, that's not a simple topic to discuss about, right? And that's what we see, and I think that's why we need everybody to be more educated, and that's on us, right? It really is on us. It's on everybody who is leading that space, I think. But that's a big mission, right? Because first of all, they have to listen, right? We have to put that on their agenda. And I totally agree that it's really crucial for Europe what is happening now, but it's a tough one.
It's absolutely. I mean, you can't really expect that the politicians do have that knowledge, and they hear buzzwords like ESG or AML, and of course that's a first reaction in the head, and so it's up to us to educate or re-educate, and yeah, that's a long. It's going to be a long way. But if you talk to if in the environment with the regulator, it's not a problem of AML actually, because it's like the same as trading like traditional assets. It's just fully whitelisted. It's fully KYC'd, fully AML. And that's actually not a problem as long as you have a regulated counterpart.
Bernard, what kind of clientele do you have? Are they educated? Are they Generation X or?
No, I think we mainly target traditional investors who have been in the industry for some time. Yeah, mainly private investors, wealth managers who have private investors and family offices. I think less at the moment still, or yet, pension funds and insurance companies. I think it's a bit further down. I think we do a lot of education already in this segment, but it's really more private wealth people and private investors.
Yeah, and we need to do education on that because
you need to do. I think
this is yours. I think
this is ours. Yeah, but just I think. To educate investors is probably the easier task than to educate politicians. And I think politicians, you need to get them to listen to you. And
especially you have to do it over and over and over again because they leave every couple of years, right? So
it's a fair point, exactly. Yeah. and I think the regulator, politicians, probably lobbying groups who then go to politicians are important as well. And I think it's. And
if this were the only burning platform, okay. But we also have energy crisis, a climate crisis. We have, I think, a war going on. So there's a lot of crises, right? And so this is on the bottom of the stack. Seems like. Do you notice that in Switzerland at all? No?
I mean, Switzerland, I don't think is necessarily relevant on the global scale in this discussion, but I mean,
but you're all over the world, right?
Absolutely, our client base is global. I mean, I think we're talking about education in the context of politicians. I think we also need to think about perspective. Are they necessarily wrong thinking about this a hosted ban solution? I mean, what's their motivation? I mean, you've come out of a period where in Canada, basically, you saw arbitrary confiscation of accounts. We've got basically on a national level, we have potentially foreign reserves basically confiscated without due course, whether it's justified or not. I'm just saying there's normally a due course in this stuff. So I think you need to think also about the perspective. And I think politicians also come from the perspective of control. And I think, there's often decentralized currency. Why do we care? It doesn't really, historically, it hasn't really solved anything for us in a mature economy with a mature financial system. But if you go to Africa, you go to parts of Asia where they do not have a financial system, it has solved problems for quite a while. And I think only just now we're starting to realizing the relevance of a decentralized currency where there's no central authority. That money is yours on the chain, you can control it. And that's potentially a threat as well. So I think it's not just about education. I think we're in a very interesting time where that threat's being more broadly perceived. And it's not necessarily going to be fully accepted so readily. Maybe they're more educated than we think.
Yeah. But it can also be part of the solution because you mentioned there's so many problems in the world nowadays, and it's very far below in terms of priorities. But crypto or blockchain, you shouldn't mention the name, I heard, yeah, but can be part of the solution. Look at people, who need their money because they're refugees, right? And I think politicians need to be aware of that as well. And it comes back to education. Unfortunately, it's a buzzword, but it's so important. And I think everybody of us in the industry needs to have this mindset to educate in every education or in every conversation we have also privately with people. And I think this is important.
So I want to do a little quiz. We kind of scripted this, because we talked last week, so we already know the dilemmas here. But we have a little quiz here. So there's a couple of dilemmas and misconceptions. So first one, Thomas, you want to take the first one. Yeah? Bitcoin infrastructure is not conforming to the climate control. Is that good or bad?
I think we have to ask ourselves what is the value we get out of that, right? What is this infrastructure really doing for us, right? And I think we have to switch that discussion to, yes, what's the energy consumption and what's the use case we are spending this energy for? I think that is the right question. And I think, yes, you can be of both opinions if it's bad or good, right? But I think proof of work so far was really the innovative algorithm which made all of that possible.
So
right?
Max already answered that question. You weren't in that session.
Yeah, I heard just a little bit of it. Yeah. But I think yes. So that's my point of that, right? We have to discuss about what's the value we get out of it, and not what only focus on the energy, because that's a problem with Bitcoin. Actually, it's very transparent, right? You can see how much energy it is burning, right? If you compare that, I don't know how much energy was used to provide my €100 bill, right?
So do you think we should bring in legislation to limit proof of work?
No, I don't think we should regulate technology, to be very honest. I don't think we should do that, and we saw that if you intervene with how things are developed, let's even on a European level, it can be of any opinion. But for example, to get rid of this lamps, right? We did that on a European level. What did that really help, right? And I think we should not start to think about banning a piece of technology. We should do different things, like maybe tell people to, if you want to do Bitcoin mining, right, you are incentivized to use green energy, right, and not to mine it with like charcoal, like if really with really black energy, right? I think we should more incentivize good behavior than blocking a technology. Because like the development of technology should always be which is the best technology, and we see which technology is disrupting other technologies, right? And that should be the life cycle of a technology, and not that a politician is blocking the use of one technology.
Absolutely, it's not, a ban can't be the solution, right? The technology is just, you know, the market will lead us to the right result.
Most bans so far didn't really work, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. especially if you're talking about decentralized products worldwide. I mean, that's not working.
But you're the trader here, Bernard.
Yeah, but just one comment on ESG. I think we only talk about the E, and that's also an issue. Why don't we talk about the S and the G? Because that looks different already when you talk about crypto. Like, it's very democratic, it's very S, it ticks a lot of boxes, and also G, governance, regulation, I think is going into sometimes in a direction where you can tick the box. Yeah, I think that shouldn't be forgotten when we talk to investors, because they not only look at the E.
Well, certain powers don't agree, you know.
Well, I would agree. I think if you look at the U.S., some of the progressives have been the biggest opponents against things like crypto, when in fact it's one of the most inclusive technologies you could deliver. This whole peer-to-peer empowerment could radically, revolutionize inclusiveness and banking the world. But it's not, so far, that narrative is being missed.
So Seamus, do you think that legal barriers are really an obstacle for mass adoption, or? I mean, you're all over the world with your infrastructure.
It's friction. I mean, it's friction, right? I mean, I think we're not really in the peer-to-peer market. We enable the B2B, then they can basically deliver this to the market. But ultimately, I think regulations have been a bottleneck, basically, right? Fortunately, most of the regulations, I think, have been going generally the right direction in terms of this asset class. We heard it many times yesterday. This asset class is here to stay, which was ambiguous in many jurisdictions for a while. Even the US, but I think since the last 12 months, we've had a lot of, whether it's presidential working group or basically the various different agencies aligning that it will be regulated. How is not always clear, but I think globally this is going to be a regulated asset. So I think that enables adoption. Outright bans, of course, complicated, but I don't think as a peer-to-peer nature, I think it's built to bypass that as well. Right?
And there are solutions out there. I mean, legal barriers are holding back mass adoption, yes, but shouldn't do a sales pitch here. But if you look at the ETP structure we're offering, everybody can buy it. Miss Miggins on the road, state pension fund, there are no legal barriers to buy an ETP, also from many European countries. It's different, obviously, in other regions of the world, but there are solutions out there already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need a proper regulation for mass adoption. I think that's the point, actually.
Yeah, and we need clarity, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Because some countries are waiting for MiCA, some countries are not waiting, are just moving ahead. So that's not helping our cause, right? Thomas, you wrote a great book about that.
No, absolutely agree. I think that is one of these rare situations where legislation can enable a technology, because in most cases lawmakers normally tend to not to amend legislation because of the rise of one new technology. They say we'll cover it with the existing laws we have, but here you see clearly that clear rules can enable the usage and the development of that technology. Tokenization of assets is one example. We heard yesterday, for example, that you can tokenize a piece of art and then issue it NFT. And then if you transfer the NFT, you're considered the owner of the physical object. From a legal perspective, that's really tough. Right? Yeah. That's civil law, which is in every jurisdiction different. We have like this lex recite, so the physical object always, the laws are applicable of the jurisdiction where it is at, right? That's really tough, but there are solutions which could make that possible. And I think what we really need is, and that's actually a good example, because if I sell you the NFT, which represents the ownership, for example, of a piece of art, right? You want to be sure that if you want to, you can actually do whatever you want with that piece of art. So you want to come to the possessor of the piece of art, show him the token, and then tell him, please hand it over. If you don't get that, this legal certainty, this will not fly, because we will have a lot of bad cases where people think of that they participate in something, they buy some precious metals or precious piece of art. And in the end, a court will tell them, no, you've never been the owner.
What's interesting here, tokens know no boundaries, you would think.
Absolutely.
But what works in one country does not work in another, right?
Absolutely.
So how's that going to work? You know?
That is actually true. And what you can do is, which limits the use, for sure you can put it in custody in one specific jurisdiction, right? And that is what is happening. We see banks in Liechtenstein, for example, doing exactly that. They even like issue NFTs of a piece of art, and then they put it into the portfolio of the client. So you see it, you have like your euro, Swiss franc, your stock, and then you have your NFTs, which are tokenized piece of art, right? But I totally agree. If you want to do that cross-border, and token, they have no borders, you have to make sure from a legal perspective that the claims which are represented or the rights which are represented within the token are assured. And we made that pretty clear, and we have a concept for that, but that's not the universal concept for everybody.
So
everybody
with the
has to think
law,
about.
you know, when I have, suppose I have my Apple wallet on me, and I'm from Rotterdam, and then I cross the border, I have 10,000 euros of NFTs. With the proposed new European law, that would no longer be possible, right? I would have to, you know, KYC, AML, all that. You
That's
know.
with the unhosted wallets, travel rule.
Yeah.
I mean,
even if I'm in, my company's in Liechtenstein, I live in Rotterdam, this is a mess. How is Europe going to do this?
But the thing is, it didn't start with the unhosted wallets. We have the travel rule in place for service providers since 2020, right? I mean, Switzerland adopted it. We heard it also yesterday. Liechtenstein adopted it. And like service providers, they have to comply with that, right?
But are we going to retreat from that with this new proposed law?
No, that's just the next step, right? The next step, and sometimes people think that it might not be applicable because what I will do is I will just use my old wallet, right, and then send it with my old wallet. But reality is that's not true, right? Because what will happen is how they enforce that might be pretty simple. They will ask the software providers, which provide your wallet software, to implement it.
Yep.
So there's no, I mean, there is, from a technical point of view, there are ways how to even build your own transactions, but that's a tough one. And that might, for sure, as you said, if it's 10,000 euro worth, what I have to do is I have to exchange information before I'm able to transfer the tokens to you. And the question is...
It's just easy to take 10,000 euros in cash across the border then.
Oh yes, that might be easy.
There's something.
That's why cash is better for money laundering. That's the reason.
And don't forget about the traceability. You cannot get rid of these blockchain transactions, right?
Yeah. So we're far off from tokenized society, but I think it's on all us. You know, we need to re-educate people. We need to keep repeating people and telling them that there's a lot of misconceptions. Right? And as a matter of fact, 2tokens is a non-for-profit foundation where we do just that. We have 3 silos, you know, legal, regulatory people, financiers, investors, exchanges, and techies. So you're all represented here. And these 3 silos have debates, and we talk about dilemmas, but in the end, you know, we can talk technical talk all along. If we can show the value for society, if we can show what tooling we have. You know, back in 1992, everybody was used to a fax machine, and they said, email? There's nobody to email to. Were you going to explain how the SMTP protocol works and POP3? No, you just wanted to know that the mail got there, right? And it's the same for tokenization. We should stop talking tokenization and all the protocol nonsense. It's just not to say that it's not important. We need to talk about the value that we deliver. You know, there's all these different sectors. We have the maritime sector. You know, we did a token to transmit bills of lading from one continent to the other. Is that crypto? No. But is it a token? Yes. Did we need to change laws? Yes. But once the stakeholders understood, they changed the law and it was adopted and it's in use. And so all these sectors, you know, will have to come to terms to what we're trying to do. You know, and it's not just the fintech sector here. You know, we need to explain what it is, what we're doing, because we are only 5% of society here. You know, the rest of the world doesn't understand us. They just think we can make a quick buck with crypto.
But I have now a question for you. What you talked about 5%. Of this 5%, how many of these 5% do you think are in crypto, meaning crypto assets like Bitcoin,
but this is a
Ethereum, or
generational.
tokenization?
This is a generational thing. So I'm from Holland, and it was just a study was just published that 47% of my children, up until 30, are in crypto. Which is great. I think it's great. My generation, 55 plus, don't think it's great. We think we need to protect them, but they know very well what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so here we are again to the misconception and dilemma. We need to re-educate my generation, who are currently calling the shots.
Yeah, but the next step is not talking about crypto assets, right? When you don't want to hear that word, we don't want to use that, right? As you said. But if the next step is tokenization, people are, if they are thinking of blockchain and crypto, they think about cryptocurrencies in most cases, right?
Yes.
And the next step is to think about other use cases. And that's already the next step, which is rather complex, right?
So how can we be one voice to the members of parliament and re-educate them and get them up to speed? That's my call to all of you, right? Let's educate them. Sebastian is here. Sebastian, we will announce a really nice working group, which is on the use case. It's about how my daughter can buy solar panels and she doesn't have a roof, right? But she can buy solar panels in Vienna from Wien Energy and still get the passive income. Who cares that it is tokens and crypto in the back? No, she gets passive income, she has solar panels, and it works.
Okay.
That's what we should be preaching. We should not be preaching, all the technicalities and everything, because you lose half of the population. That's what we are discussing here, and I hope that you agree, and we can all move to that. I think it's time, right? No? So it's time. Any last word? Thomas, one last word.
I think I do agree that everybody should raise his voice if you understand what we are talking about and get educated about what is happening with that travel rule, and raise your voice, right? The European Commission, for example, is doing all of these questionnaires, and not a lot of people are actually attending, right? Raise your voice. If you're educated, raise your voice and make your point.
Your example was great. I mean, that's what it's all about. The digital assets or tokenization, whatever. You can do things, invest in things that's just not possible at the moment, and that's really who cares about if it's on blockchain or whatever. It's just a new chance for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the real-life use cases are really important to focus on and to emphasize, because then people can really picture what it is doing, the technology, and then you see the outcome. And I think many people are outcome-oriented. The combination of outcome orientation and education, is really important. And I think I just can repeat myself. Education is really key, and we really need to tell everybody to do it and to do it in the right way as well. Educate yourself, and then you educate your friends, your peers, and ultimately also decision makers who decide on our fate as well, ultimately, because we live in a democratic world. Yeah.
Our fates, Seamus.
I mean, there's clearly tokenization is the huge opportunity in the future. The question is how we get there. There's political issues, but there's clearly foundational infrastructure to manage this. I mean, crypto, I think, is the starting point. You build crypto infrastructure, it gives you all the optionality to manage the same thing in the token economy. And I really think you need that foundation first, and I think the motivation to build that is, we see that now in business cases, and I think that ultimately you need that before you can tokenize everything. Everyone needs a wallet, everyone needs custody infrastructure.
There's a great closing words, and on that bombshell, no, that was somebody else, I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, we had one more slide, you can send the questions to us or alex@twotokens.org or anybody here in the panel. Thank you again, Philip Sandberg, and hope to see you soon next time.